The second bad practices that we want to introduce today is about API utilization. So I give some quick introduction about why API. So today, API, it really is on the industry trends. And we know that for any people who build applications, for now, it's not just built in desktop or web, but we would like it to have available on mobile. And even for right now with the development with IoT, it might happen with other platform like in your cars, in your TVs, or in any devices in your home. Is on connect together. So let's say if you have to build the applications that should be available in any platform, it the way that is better you to approach that is to build the service that use API to support the application. So it means that now if you have like mobile web or other stuff working, you need to build the front end only. So on the back end will be like API, and you only need to be one back end server, and it can support all of the application that you have. So in terms of architecture, microservice is really something like a buzzword right now. At we know the guy in Netflix doing, they have do not have monolithic applications because they kind of develop their application and they deploy it every day. So how to make it better? They like separate their application into smaller species, smaller modules, and each of the modules will be deployed, can be scaled up by itself. So it gives them a better way to really control their product, make them deploy faster, and have them able to scale up real quick. And between the module that in the microservice architectures, it work together via API. So that's why APIs is being used more and more today. And last but not least, this is really the errors of data. So we all know that like Facebook or Google or Amazon, the asset that the bad asset that they have right now is really data. They have data of everything. That's why they can build a lot of algorithm, a lot of things that helpful to people, and that's why it helped them to beat on of the competitor, other competitor based on their data. So how to make the data connect to each other is it work by its API. So all the things happen out there in the industry, it really explosive development for API. So in terms of like development, for working with API is more about a ship lab trends, which means that when you have APIs and you can test, so the developer now then test their API, their own API. They don't need to wait for like in the tester, the QA to do that, because technically they can do that. And since the tester, since the developer can do the validation by their own, is introduce the capability to have like to shorten the feedback loop. So if any problem, they can fix that immediately, not to wait for a while for like building and testing and then fix the bug. But if they do with API, they can easily and identify the problem in the beginning. So with API, it even faster and better coverage. So in terms of better coverage here, so if you test a web application or in mobile, you need to test it in many platforms. So you need to do it like on Mac or on Windows or on Chrome, Firefox, and all of the stuff that you need to do. So in iPad, so iPhone. But with API, you don't need to do that. They only one test with API, but have you cover everything. So API is really something that not only is out there because of the trend of the industry, but also will internally help the team to become faster and better in cover the quality of the product. So for API or I mean web service in Catalan Studio, the term here is not really interchangeable. Web service is a more specific thing of API, but I think right now for making the conversation easier, we will use API at the term. So today in Catalan Studio, there are two approaches for working with API, which I will show you guys shortly. Is the manual mode that you can use the UI to create API, or the scripting mode, which is you can do it with pure script. You don't need to interact with any UI. So it depends on the flavor of the tester or the people who use Catalan Studio to pick their approach that they want. And we do the both because we know people out there, they have their own way to resolve the problem. So we have them to deal with that. So for API in Catalan Studio, it's not just about API testing, but for today, I will show you more about using API as the utility for making like the test of web, mobile, or desktop faster. So you can see here, I have a snapshot of like structure, open API 2.0. So nowadays, when the developer done with the application, the only thing that they not only handle to the QA the application by itself, but will also handle an API specification. So they will also give you a list of API out there that you can use. So let's say that now QA is only the tester not only have the application to test again, but they have a list of API. And I think this is a really powerful tool that we can leverage to make our automation test better. All right, so let me show you real quick about the two way that you can deal with API. First of all, I believe that you guys, all right, so this is the screen for you to create an API. So you can do, so one of the practice here, so you should use some kind of global variable for your base UL. I think this is a good practice that you should follow, because this is you need to change it when you switch environment and you put it into the global variable. You can easily deal with that, right? So you can put variable here as well. Yes, this is for testing with different data that you can input to the API, and this is really for testing the request that you have. Take longer than expected. All right, I think that's fine. Secondly, you can build API with pure script. So it just let it run. So let's say if you want to create an API with script, actually you can do that by, oh, okay. There's something happened with the network. Okay. Yeah, the API keyword, and you see here everything is built with pure script, which means that for people who doesn't matter much for dealing with the UI, you can create the script immediately. So this is a more dynamic way to deal with API, that we can create a header, create body, and set on the things here. So it's the same. It's the same that you do via UIs, but it's another dynamic approach. Because when you do with this, is there are more places that you can utilize the API across the application. Okay, so let's say I have an API here, and firstly create a new user by script, and then verify the created user. Okay, so when working with API, there will be some har file we store on the information of the connection that you can check in some you have problems. So we verify that the user had been created successfully with the API. All right. let me go back to here and go to the main part. Okay, so for API utilization today, I would share with you three techniques. The first one is you test API for test data processing. Secondly, it's about replacements for a segment of UI script. And lastly, it will be using for result validations. Right. So this year, I think is if your script need to deal with data, so most of the time that you need to prepare your data, and with API we have a tool to really deal with it very easy. So normally you prepare data, and then after execution you clean up the data. But I think it's safer for you to clean up data at the beginning, because we don't know if any problem with execution, right? So before the execution, we should like clean up all the data to make sure we have good execution, and then we can use API for generate initial data. So of course, it's the case that you have the API and the API can help you do that. So in the case that you do not have like the exact API that you want, you might come to the developer and ask for that. But if in case you have that, we can leverage that. So I will give a quick example about this. Let's say this is Catalan test up, the product that I told you already. So here we have a feature to create a new organization. So let's say I can input a name here, but technically we can say that it doesn't allow you to create duplicated name. So if I create a test case with a fixed name here, the second time when I run the test, it's gonna be a failure. So to deal with that, actually we have many ways to deal with that. So one of the way that we normally think about is using like some kind of timestamp here. So it create unit name that we don't afraid that it's gonna be like duplicated, but actually it introduce more problem, because it's not easy to really deal with this. You need to write script, you need to store the data, and you need to capture the name for later use. So it's not really straightforward to deal with that. And one of the ways is if you had an API to really remove the organization, you can utilize that to make it work for you. So you remove the data, clean it up before running, and then you're good. So let's say I have organization here. Yeah, so it's just a very small script that help create their organizations. Okay, so but for the second time when I run this, I will do another script. So this script do two things. First of all, it can like remove organizations with the API that I have. And secondly, I create a new organization again. So let's say this is one of the thing that you can utilize from the API if you have that. So let me run this one. So this to make sure that your script will not be broken due to some existing data in your test environment. Okay, so actually, I believe that the script for remove organization has worked under the scene. Yeah, so we can create now. So let's say, yeah, we have the task to remove organizations with the request here is sent, and it passed, so, and it just go ahead with a new organization creation. All right, so so with more API that you have, actually you can also generate initial data or do other things that's to make sure you have good execution. So in the demo that I show, it's just the small script to show you how to utilize the API to clean up data. So it helps you to focus on your core automation business without really afraid of the data can might break your test. So secondly, it's kind of like a replacement for UI script. So let's say I have a scenario where you in Catalan store, which I will introduce to you shortly. You're gonna have the test case where you public a new plugin, and then an admin gonna approve your plugin, and you go there and install the plugin to use. So this is a very long UI script. So with a lot of interaction here, and one of the way that you can deal with that is that you can create UAPI to public the plugin and UAPI to approve the plugin. So why we do this? Because actually here, the public new plugin and approve new plugin, you don't do it every day. So let's say it's not really an action that you need to test it over and over. Actually, if you run on of the things, it's gonna be very slow. So normally you will try to run the script on the staging environment or testing environment. You could keep it short. When you launch to production, it's the time that you need to run on the test. So in your staging or in your testing development, it will costly for you to on the time run on the script. So you have another approach here that instead of make everything in UI, you can call API to deal with that. And we test to focus on test the install the plugin behavior, because that is the behavior that user do it on the time that you want to make sure that it doesn't break. So with API, the point here is you don't need to go over the process for on the browser or on the environment. So let's say you need to do this on Mac, on Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. But for API, it's real quick, and you don't care much about the coverage that it have. You just want to make sure that, okay, the plugin is there for you to do the install. So let me run the test. Switch to the application here. All right. So I have to test with this is UI only, which is I run the test with public approve and install the plugin. Okay, let's just run that. Okay, so this is the Catalan store. You can log in with your Catalan account. When you go here, you can actually public a new plugin at the script show you what to do. So if you build a plugin, you can public that. All right. Input some information to describe the plugin, and then it will be in the draft mode, which means that you need to publish it, and then the store admin will look into and approve your plugin before it can be published to the website. So right, so it's have been public. Now you try to look into store and install the plugin that you just public. Yeah, so technically, if you want to do a full test cases, it's what you had to run. So let's say in this case, it might take a while for running on the stuff because it's really a costly test case to run. Now we had another option for that. So we use the API to public and approve the plugin, and then we only run to test install the plugin via UI. So let's say if make things really better for us. So that's the case that I want to share to show that with API, it can help you execute tests faster. So actually, it not a full UI test, but this is the tool that you can use to really have focus on automation, the thing that you want to automate the more, to save time and to make sure that we can test as much as we can in the staging and development environment, not just wait when everything is done and you go there and test on your production. So now you see, if we have API that install and approve the plugin already, we only need to focus on like testing for the UI install. Okay. So I think it must be much more farther than doing with all the UI that you have. All right. So last but not least is for using API to do test result validation. So a scenario that I put here is when you install a new plugin, you call the API to really validate the plugin have been installed already, or when you uninstall the plugin, you validate again the uninstallation. So let's say not in terms of data, not all the time you can really do it easy with UI, or sometimes maybe the UI work, the thing broken behind the scene. So let's say you install a new plugin, maybe for some reason it said that things okay, but you haven't got the plugin yet. So let's say API will help you really cover the data that actually install into the install for user. So it provides easier way, and it's safer as well, because if you do all the validation via UI, so one day the developer just change the UI, so the test will be broken for sure. Let's say when I come here, just look for plugin, say install. Sorry, haven't looked in yet. So it's had a pop-up here, but actually I think it's not all the time that we can easily validate that with the information that we have on the UI, the plugin have installed already, right? And also here, when you like uninstall the plugin, so other than the pop-up that we see here, it's not easy to really say, like go through the list to check if the plugin have been like uninstalled already. But now, I mean, if we had an API to check whether the plugin is installed or not, it would be much more easier for us to really validate the test case. So let's say here, I really have from the developer the API to get on the plugin that I have installed. So this is the API I get from the developer. So when I run it, so I got the list of all the plugin and I install. So instead of try to do the validation via UI, I'm gonna utilize this API to do the validation. So for example, real quick. Okay. Test cases, I will have a quick. Okay, so I have a test case here, would have me like log in and install the plugin, and then I call the API to validate the installed plugin. So let's say I do not really do it via UI, but I validate with API. Okay, so I think just that's it. All right, so actually it pretty much of the practices that I want to share with you guys today.